Good evening, my dear colleagues. Welcome to another INGED Zoom Serious Talk. This evening, our guest is Dr. Tamar Dolidze, who is an associate professor of Batumi State Maritime Academy, Georgia. Tamar Hocam has many responsibilities, ranging from working as a reviewer for index journals to teaching at a number of institutions as a guest lecturer. This evening, the title of her talk is Rising Media Literacy Raising Media Literacy in ESP Classroom via Authentic Materials. Welcome, dear Tamar Hocam. Thank you for being our guest speaker, and I'm leaving the screen to you.
Thank you very much, Diana Hocam. Thank you very much for your kind invitation, at the same time opportunity. Part of Ingrid series during pandemic, and I really fell in love with Turkish EFL community, and I really learned a lot. I really just shared with your excellent expertise in the area of English language teaching, and today I'm really just honored and thrilled to be kind of presenting my just modest experience of planning and kind of like my ESP classes, and at the same time raising media literacy with authentic materials during pandemic and beyond, because we are at the age, it's a kind of a moment that pandemic is almost over, but still biggest concern for our globe. I think this war in Ukraine is kind of not substituting this situation, but still it's a kind of new reality. That's why today I'm representing my country, Georgia, and I really pray for peace, and I really support Ukraine, and I really hope that peace will very, very soon return on the globe, and because it will definitely just not prevent from focusing on our academic life, because it's a kind of not distracting, but still we are doing our best in order to provide educational activities and update our students with kind of educational materials. So as for today's talk, and as it was already introduced, but as already Dr. Aydan Hocam already introduced, I actually mostly am based in Georgia, in Batumi, at the Black Sea side, as you say, and I'm affiliated to Batumi State Maritime Academy as a Faculty of Business and Management, where I mostly, and of course, firstly teach in the business English, business communication, and also I belong to another private university where I'm invited and I teach legal English, because one of my also positions involves international relations department and organizing summer schools in constitutional law at the Constitutional Court of Georgia. That's why my job-related kind of like duties are very closely linked to academic and teaching activity. That's why my interest to ESP, my interest to just building variety into my teaching experience is a kind of like coming from my administrative and of course combined with my academic position. And also I teach communication language philosophy online university, Picasso International, based in Italy, which I joined during pandemic. Okay, this was a kind of like a small introduction, and of course a kind of related to my recent research interest. At the same time, my PhD dissertation was on the topic of exploring peculiarities of newspaper headlines. That's why I'm all the time doing my best in order to introduce and integrate a kind of recent stories around the world in all my ESP classes. Can it be like a legal English, business English, or any other any other even general English courses. So in today's webinar, I will be doing my best in order to do it not boring but interactive. I can be also asking questions maybe during the webinar, but mostly at the end you are most welcome. But at the same time, you can always stop me, or you can raise question in the chat. I will be doing my best in order to control it. Thank you very much, Orhan Hocam. So thank you very much. So first of all, I will start with a kind of maybe I know that you are more aware about importance of raising media literacy. So in USP classroom, because I mostly teach and do my academic activity students with specialized English, and at the same time today I'm going to kind of like show and a little bit touch upon the issues of challenges when using, in my case, news articles in ESP classroom. So I'm going to touch upon the issue of selection criteria, newspaper articles from various sources, variety of sources, and how to plan, how to design our ESP classes for effectively using news articles, because we know that when we are using authentic materials, we need to design activities on our own. They may not be actually ready-made. So it's a kind of headache for us, but it's a kind, I think, in my just opinion, quite useful thing. And at the end, I'm going to give you some recommendation based on my more or less successful experience of integrating authentic materials. And I will be more than happy to kind of like generate discussion by asking questions at the end of today's webinar. So let me first of all, kind of ask question and at the same time answer the question, and what is media literacy? And today, of course, in the 21st century, media literacy is a kind of approach, and which is not quite new to the education, but this is very much actually actual and recent trend in education in general, and especially in EFL education. This trend provides framework in order to access, analyze, evaluate, and create, participate with messages in a variety of forms, starting from printed, materials to video, audio visuals, and to the internet. And media literacy at the same time builds an understanding of the role of media in the society, and as well as essential skills, which is called 21st century skills nowadays, and very essential ones, and help raising inquiry, kind of like critical thinking and self-expression, which is definitely one of the basic requirements for the citizen of democracy, yes, of the civilized world. And when we talk about 21st century skills, of course, we all the time remember very famous forces. And forces of that, critical thinking include critical thinking, first of all, creativity, collaboration, and communication. That's why teaching media literacy provides students with all these skills, which was listed by me, which definitely help them to foremost think critically about the media. So by asking questions, good questions, like Socratic questions, and this is like a definitely 21st century skill. And at the same time, increase in tandem the digital literacy skills through interacting with media, information, and of course, technology. We can definitely avoid it. At the same time, media literacy instruction can be also helpful for students in order to develop them as active consumers of information and determine kind of credible sources, and from just less credible ones, acknowledge kind of biases, which are so much abundant in today's media, because especially in all situations, even during pandemic, now in the war situation, and before of course, maybe to disappointment, there are lots of bias sources. And it's very important to a kind of teach and a kind guide our students to select from most unbiased ones. And at the same time, be responsible creators of media. This is very important with this aim. And using media definitely will engage students, definitely facilitate our students in order to retain the information, knowledge, and motivate interest in the subject matter, and at the same time illustrate the relevance of many concepts by effective instruction. And also it builds bridges between student knowledge and learning objectives of the course. It depends whether it's a legal English course. Sometimes this really needs lots of planning, lots of careful consideration in advance. But whether it's business English course, it should be very much, for example, also very much relevantly related to the recent topics in economy, in business, etc., etc. And when we talk about media literacy, of course, this is already predicted with my title, but of course, nowadays, if I ask you to name the word which has been creeping in ESP teaching in the past few years, I'm sure you will very easily write in the chat. This is authenticity. And authentics, so which is a kind of buzzword in EFL community. Maybe I'm too much obsessed with this word, I don't know, but still, if I even ask it for just different kind of events, ITFL nowadays, everyone wants to sound authentic, integrate authentic material in their teaching practice and teaching experience. The fact is that authentic materials. So if we go to the definitions, which was offered by Gilmore, Rogers, and Medley, this is a kind of adjective attribute which may be applied to language and text coming from real life instead of course book written. Writer written educational text, and it may also be applied to activities which do occur in everyday communication. So instead of retell, translate, but I'm sure we are no longer doing translating the text and tasks that are only used in the classroom. So that's why integrating authentic material is another good way of teaching English with maximal approximation to the real life situation and surrounding. And another definition, classical definition of authenticity, goes to Widdowson, and it relates to the qualities taught on a text by the receiver of the information, in that it's not seen as something inherent in the text itself, but it is imparted on it by the reader and by the listener. So I think it's more than enough with the definitions of authenticity, but still, now let's kind of answer the question, what is a kind of correlation between English for specific purposes, in my case, legal English and business English, because today I will be presenting a kind of lesson plans and my kind of ideas, most in legal English and business English, and try to answer, let's try to actually present their correlation. First of all, ESP teachers, and or maybe I think that all language teachers one day they are somehow touching subject matter, yeah. So and students, they are naturally attracted to authentic materials. So once again, these are materials produced for the purpose of language learning, like articles, TED Talks, nowadays different recordings, even stand-up comedy programs, podcasts, and firstly, and why? And firstly, finding out that you can read something designed for a native speaker, and at the same time developing strategies dealing with real life in an effective and manner, and at the same time having a proper understanding is always motivating, not only for learners, even for us as non-native speaker teachers of English as foreign language, for me in my case. And secondly, authentic material provides ESP learners with up-to-date information existing in the field. So in this case, we're killing two birds, yes, with one shot. And when we teach, yes, authentic materials and why, one of the most challenging tasks, which is actually, which has been facing ESP education, is how to boost learners' interest around the search topics through using authentic materials. And of course, I had the same challenge during pandemic, and now even after that, not at the end of pandemic, but still beyond the pandemic, how to retain my students' interest around the topic. Yes, we are all the time doing our best in order to provoke interest and authentic materials, for me, serves one of the best ways to boost their interest around most actual issues, yes, in their subject field. Material derived from real life experience should reflect a language, and finally, contribute to an effective learning process. And ESP teachers, indeed, we all have a great amount of materials available nowadays from different sources, and at the same time we can develop the most effective strategies for dealing with real language. This is very important. So, and let me now move to the different categories of authentic materials, which was a little bit covered in my previous slide. Actually, they are divided into three main groups, starting from daily use objects. But of course, now we are returning to face-to-face. So learning mode. I was telling Aydan Hocam that only this term my university returned, because so far we only were using just electronic materials, like even invoices, like reports, financial statements, application forms, emails. This was shared, but now we can of course print it out. But of course nowadays we have smart boards and we can share like in electronic format. At the same time, another category is represented by broader representation of authentic materials like journals, newspapers, TV, radio, broadcasts, podcasts, yes, internet websites, and general and special literature. And last and not least is an easily accessible website. And these are actually mostly represented by authentic specialist publication in the field, statistics, reports, and surveys. And for example, at Batumi State Maritime Academy, we have Faculty of Navigation as well. And I also teach business English to the students of navigation. And by the way, we adopted English language program, and we received 2 Turkish students this year. But still, when I even teach business English navigation students, it's very important to provide them with websites where they can be searching something in recent information related to the subject matter, in their case like some maritime industry. And of course, why should we be using authentic material? In my opinion, the factor of versatility is very important, because there are so many different categories, and of course there is so much choice, and of course free. Most of them, they are free, and nowadays they can be very easily accessible on the nowadays for us with one click. So as we see, so there are this factor is really very much motivating, and one more kind of like a stimulus for integrating authentic material in our classroom. Before voting, once again, and at the same time, unadapted materials leads the class to real-life language usage and makes CSP learning process more meaningful, engaging for learners. And at the same time, availability of great variety of authentic materials is both challenging and beneficial for ESP teachers, since they need to pick up the one which would meet learners' needs and expectation, their level, their competence, and of course, upon the form of integrating into the classroom. And authentic materials in technology-based ESP classroom, so far, indeed boosts learner autonomy and constructive learning process in tandem with raising media literacy. I think we listened, more than enough about authentic materials and about the kind of like benefits of integrating them. Now I will be kindly asking you, maybe if you are with phones, you can just press your phone and you can just open your cameras and you can vote, because I'm really interested how many of you is using which authentic materials, because I have my own choice, as I have already mentioned. So will you be kindly going to the link which I shared in the chat and just poll it, so maybe after a couple of minutes, I will not be spending time on it. I will see the results. What is the preference for majority of today's attendees? So when selecting authentic materials, is the link also clickable? Can I just check it? Maybe you can write in the chat. Just let me know. Yes, good. So I will be very much thankful if you could go and vote for it. Okay. Let's continue and let's with one of most frequently used authentic material in my teaching practice, which I already mentioned. This is newspaper articles. Maybe because of the fact that my PhD thesis was a kind of dedicated to newspaper style. This is a kind of my obsession, but still I really enjoy it. And why do so many? I believe that many teachers, not only me, enjoy and like using newspaper articles. And why? First of all, newspapers are much more current than course book. And at the same time, much information in newspapers, which so definitely makes them as an excellent springboard for the lessons. And another and last factor, this is factor of versatility, which I already mentioned, is obviously significant when talking about, because there are so many stories around one is a topic, and so many opportunities for enriching vocabulary, for generating discussion, for practicing presentation, practice and production stage. Yes, this is one of my favorite. And why articles? First of all, topical stories are a great source of teaching material, and news articles present different ways of how to exploit news report in the classroom and focus on raising the level of involvement and participation that students have in the lesson in tandem with raising media literacy. And once again, there are a couple of things to consider when especially touching upon the issues of selecting newspaper articles, because this can be extremely time consuming. And in my case, it is also quite time consuming. And at the same time, this may not be necessarily interesting for learners at the same time. So we have to take into account lots of factors, lots of biases, even among our students. And especially, I can be telling you that it depends. I have been, for example, guest lecturing in different countries at the same time. So I was teaching like a concept of legal, legal concept of freedom of speech and expression. And some students were Russian. So it was international group and during summer school. And of course, this was a topic which was not very much welcome by kind of participants of this legal English summer school. That's why it's very important, but still it worked because it was a kind of stand-up comedians case which was discussed in case, so with students. That's why it was still neutral topic, but still it's very difficult and challenging for you as a teacher to kind of choose some material which is equally applicable, equally relevant to all your audience members, especially when it's kind of like an international group of students. And first challenge is related to text organization and the fact that how clearly is the text organized. And I will be also telling you that this term I'm teaching legal English with a US fellow teacher. He's from US Embassy in the capital, and we are just teaching legal English one. That's why I can't say that I'm instructing this fellow how to actually not adapt, but how to actually great how to actually make it so easily easily understandable for our students, because sometimes when we are just introducing authentic material, especially newspaper, to our students, they may not be quite quite familiar. That's why it's very important to show them peculiarity of the text organization, just starting from headline, subheadline, first passage, etc., etc. So this is a kind of maybe very short explanation should be given at the very end of a class, maybe first class of integrating authentic material, in our case newspaper. And at the same time, it's a kind of like a second challenge that sometimes headlines can be quite hard to decipher, interpret, and they sometimes even, we know that, include puns or cultural references, like maybe figurative language can be just used by the author. It depends again on the author. And another difficulty comes from genre peculiarity, and this is very important to ensure that students understand the genre, and at the same time, they might need a kind of small training in understanding features of the genre. Headline is frequently confusing, but there is always a sub-headline. That's why sometimes when we give headline to predict or forecast the story. And if there is not enough food for prediction, subheadline is always good idea because it can make things easier. So, and first paragraph at the same time, it's a good strategy, always contains what we call critical thinking questions, 5 journalist question, WH questions, starting from who, what, when, where, and why. But of course, not all articles and news stories include all these 5 WH, but it should ideally based on this principle. And this can be very nice activity during leading stage. Yes, which I'm also going to show you. Another challenge, I'm not going to give you more than 5 challenge, I promise, but still this is related to the features that sometimes in newspaper article, there can be lots of just new names, proper names, and of course, references behind these names. That's why it's very important, maybe during presentations, like a skimming stage to focus on just on these names, and at the same time to try and help students to properly understand, decipher who stands behind this him or her. Free speech means everything to me, to whom, yeah? In this case, comedian Loire. So award-winning comedian who is sued by her estranged husband. This was one of my favorite newspaper article. And again, another challenge, which is also related to kind of newspaper language. This is idiom, and there are not maybe lots of, but especially in some papers, tabloids, mostly idioms, but by choosing a comparatively short article, we can ask students to underline any idioms they find and look them up in peer work, or maybe just in individually, and then think peer share, and they could then try to rewrite the article or a kind of section without any idioms, putting the original idioms maybe in the list. So if the student have read different texts, they could also swap the roles and ask their partner to try and rewrite the article and using the list of idioms given. So this is a kind of another strategy when talking about challenge of understanding the idioms. And last challenge, it's definitely, I think, the word headache, which is related to the selection criteria. And in this case, the test of credibility, we call it CRAP test, because I was recently given critical thinking training, and because I was trained by the American Council of International Education, and this is very important, especially when we can't definitely raising critical thinking should be definitely very much related to passing this test of credibility. Otherwise, this means that if we are informing our students with just incorrect, inaccurate information, this is a kind, not crime, but this is a kind of not very educational strategy. So that's why it's very important to choose from the most reliable sources. And when selecting again newspaper article, once again, I'm not going to spend lots of time. We should consider how interesting is it. So will our target audience be interested in the topic? Lengths, yes. Some, because mostly, because these are actually not adapted texts, they are too long. And for like a 90-minute news lesson, it's not a good idea to use more than 250 words news article. And language also should be taken into account. Does it contain any useful lexical sets, like a vocabulary, topical vocabulary related to the business, like economic crisis, recession, or like a topic of recent, even freedom of speech or expression in case of law, it depends, or maybe legal infrastructure. And if there is too much unknown vocabulary, this is also another headache. It should not be too much. Yes, it should be kind of maybe just enough in order to be recycled during maybe 90-minute class. And does it have potential to generate production stage actively generated potential, and do they lend themselves to discussion, lead, I'm sorry, there is and at the same time debate or role play, and are they desirable for this purpose? Okay, and when we talk about So all these challenges. Another challenge is to structure a news lesson according to the 3PP principle in my case, and covering 6 stages, starting from warm-up stage, pre-reading or listening. It can be in case it's a video integration. Yeah. Another stage can be reading or listening to the article, application or follow-up stage, feedback correction stage, and last homework, which will be a kind of last stage. And I'm not going to give you very detailed some description of what is warm-up stage, because I'm sure you already are aware, but the main aim of warm-up activity so this is to raise awareness and activate pre-existing knowledge. So activate schemata, yes, and as regular knowledge. So lessons, teachers should avoid correcting students. We should avoid correcting students here, and it should be very relaxing, so kind of atmosphere. And some suggested activities, which I usually use during warm-up activities when designing my own news classes. These are questions. This can be quizzes. This can be description of the pictures related to the article. I really love doing it. Brainstorming and raising questions. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Okay, and another stage, which is pre-reading stage or pre-listening, if it's audio, so authentic material like TED Talk or podcast or like some kind of recording. This should be actually always begin with it should be getting students interested around the topic, building confidence and preparing them for the task ahead. But it's common for instructors in news lessons to carefully pre-teach vocabulary. So that's why pre-teaching vocabulary should be so it's advisable to be done at this stage, because vocabulary can be, of course, recycled during maybe practice and like a later practice or production stage. And some activities which can be which are used by me at this stage, these are synonym matching. So students match words taken from the article and match with the synonyms or definitions, fill in the blank, story speculation, and vocabulary speculation also can be done. Vocabulary selection, sorting, this can be also done at this stage. Sentence selection, true and false. So as we see, lots of activities. So another, stage number 3 is a kind of reading task, because I'm using like newspaper articles, and in this case, we mostly practice reading skills. And this serves kind of like kind of precondition for building reading skills. And the article will be definitely read 2 or more times. But of course, it's very important to move from extensive to more intensive reading. So from skimming to scanning, this is a very good idea. But of course, this means that students will get deeper understanding with every successive reading stage. This is very important when we talk about developing reading strategies. And when as we see during reading stage, from general comprehension questions, we can be using checking pre-reading ideas, at the same time skimming and scanning activities, and detailed comprehension questions. This can be also used. This means that this can be done after second reading, after getting into details, after reading specific information. When working on the text. Another activity, which is a kind of student-generated comprehension questions. So the following activities can be offered: completion of the sentences. For example, students can be asked to take beginning of some key sentences from the text or like a newspaper article, and they will complete the sentence from memory. So, and at the same time, they can also write a headline for the story, for each paragraph, and summarizing is also a good idea. And one of my favorite kind of activities, especially by highlighting key terms. And this is one of the best ways, and I think basic steps of boosting and fostering critical thinking in our learners, and whether they are general English or like specific English. And application and follow-up stage activities, of course, this definitely give students a chance to use newly acquired vocabulary, and at the same time in tandem with the vocabulary knowledge around the subject matter in less controlled and in a meaningful way and manner. So that's why students should be reminded to use new vocabulary, and they should be kind of like asked and using target language as much as possible. So this is a kind of our aim. And last, not last, so suggested activities for this stage are role plays, discussion, debates. Yes, debates. These are actually very nice activities. And of course, at the same time, all these activities foster critical thinking. And feedback and correction stage number 5. So it's a kind of stage which is reserved and for correction, but of course together with warm-up stage and this stage they kind of create bookends of effective lesson, and it's very important to to organize within like one meeting, and it also guarantees that students leave the classroom with a clear idea of what they have achieved. Sense of achievement is very important. We all agree about this. And homework, and correction, this can be done. Review, it's a good idea to briefly review what was covered, and feedback and motivation can be also done at this stage. And homework, of course, is important for students in order to progress in studies. But somehow our students, especially, they are a little bit too much used to actually practicing, producing the language and being presented the language in class. But of course, we have to design a kind of motivating or maybe interesting homework activities in order to enable them revisit the materials and knowledge information which was introduced during classroom activities. That's why this will enable them to self-study and to revisit the lesson. And of course, retention of the information. I think it's not impossible, but it's better like just achieved as a result of just doing a homework activity. And some of the suggested activities, this can be research project, and at the same time project-based learning nowadays definitely can be so at the same time fostered. And comparison activities, I think I often use, for example, I give students different sources and different authors, and they can be very just effectively comparing different perspectives around one and the same topic and one and the same issue from different authors' perspectives. And at the same time, for example, in one of my classes, I also so a couple of times even use letter writing. Students had to write a letter to someone from the article telling them how they feel towards this character, or like a real life character. And summarizing and listening also can be given as homework, like listening to the similar stories like or related stories around the topic. And let me now move to a little bit, kind of like not teaching you too much, so show you how I actually have been integrating authentic materials. And of course, this picture shows, I think the students will, it can be used to generate interest and to predict the topic of in legal English classroom. And what does this couple symbolize? And of course, students of law, based on the topics, of course, I can be giving, asking some kind of maybe additional questions. This is a topic of freedom of speech. And with this kind of symbolic picture, I introduced the topic, one of my favorites, about stand-up comedian's husband who was sued for defamation. Yes, over provocative show. And in today's class, meeting, I decided not to present this lesson plans because it was really just, it's really just a very extensive one. But still, this lesson plan was very successfully kind of like introduced to kind of like summer school students just at my work, at the same time legal English students, depending on the level, because it's always a good idea to generate the interest around the topics of mainly related to the democratic and Western values, like freedom of speech and democracy. And another topic which I used during pandemic in business English class, this was actually, I think it's more or less recognizable Spanish steps, as you see from the pictures in Rome. And picture one shows the situation when steps, they are full of people, full of tourists, and after. So this was the article from Financial Times and world after coronavirus. And so it showed what was the world before and what does it look like after COVID-19 pandemic. And also there was a small subheadline that this storm will pass, but the choices we make now could change our lives for years to come. And now we definitely, I agree with the author, definitely COVID-19 pandemic indeed changed our lives. So it really brought lots of kind of new challenges at the same time, and at the same time I think new opportunities. And the same pictures also I used, like empty streets of Milan, Duomo, which also was used in order to predict possible topic of the article. Another article which I also integrated during my legal English class, this was about from Chinese doctor about the hero who told the truth. And Chinese rage over coronavirus death of whistleblower doctor. This was a article from Guardian, and as we see from this subheadline, demands for freedom of speech in the wake of Li Wenliang's death have been censored by the authorities amid widespread outpouring of anger. So this doctor actually he himself died with COVID-19 virus because he actually, due to the censorship in China, in the very beginning of pandemic, he was not able to just inform that this was fatal virus. And this means that this was quite, this story was a kind of good food for discussion, debates with legal English students again. So this was actually one of the articles which was recently used with my US fellow while co-teaching at one Robakidze University in Batumi, and together with Brandon, we presented a kind of article from Biden's administration, and this article was about new investment to upgrade America's infrastructure into law. And of course, with my guidance, he is a young teacher. He actually designed all three stages of the lessons, starting from warming up activities, reading activities, and as you see, this side is very just useful because it also includes listening ready-made activities. So this enables us to integrate both printed and audiovisual, so authentic materials, all together in one class. And another article which was also actually introduced about maybe related in article on monetary policy in Turkey. Yes, because from the very beginning of pandemic, we all, of course, in my country as well, but not a lot of articles were produced about my country's inflation, but I found kind of article about inflation rates in Turkey, and with my business English class at Batumi Maritime Academy, I really just not successfully integrated in, of course, and it led to lots of discussion and why is this happening, what should be done, but of course no kind of like they were at the same time analyzing the situation together with they were kind of mastering new vocabulary, as you see highlighted words show, basic terms which I was intending in order to introduce together with target language, so practice their language, and at the same time the awareness, checking the awareness about a topic of recession, economic crisis, and how it can be resolved. So I see there are lots of just comments in the chat, but it will be distracting me if I start reading right now, but I promise to return. And another article, which is again related to, of course, COVID-19 related pandemics. This was Australian government, so a kind of costs, which cost Australia government lots of like a fortune, we can say, yes. And as we see from this article, let me just kind of very quickly share the lesson plan, because I'm not going to just present it in details, but it was for 60-minute news lesson, but business topics, economic profile of the country, budgeting, recession was introduced. At the same time, language associated with the state budgeting, and students actually read this article and they produced the language. And this is a detailed lesson plan with the activities. And as we see, it started with a warmer, and then I moved with a pre-reading or listening. So this is the article. This shows how we actually worked with highlighted words. And then it was followed by kind of vocabulary speculation, pre-teaching vocabulary. And I'm not going to actually ask you these questions, and I'm not going to distribute, but this is usually how I was quite in a comfortable manner doing it during online classes with my students. And more or less they were enjoying, they were like doing their best in order to get engaged, because in this case I was asking them to be with cameras and sound on. So this is kind of leading activity. And so students were asked to have a look at the headline, pandemic, for example, what do you think the article is going to about, etc., etc. Then it was followed by reading tasks. They skimmed the text at the same time. So then they scanned the text, yes, after scanned for details. And we worked on business language, idiomatic language, choosing the best meaning for each. And as you see, we really focus on numbers. So, and this means that this was done and lots of questions were answered at every successive readings. So this means that students have to really just work a lot, read not only once, but a couple of times in order to produce a language. And then at the final stage, students were invited to take part in the discussion activity, and they were asked to actually present their viewpoints and debate. So based on 3 party stakeholders, from government side, NGO side, public side. Yes, this was quite not fun, but still. And in last article, which I have chosen for today's meeting, this is the one which I'm actually planning to integrate so with my class. This is an article from I can tell you that this was very just important and hopeful meeting, I think, for us as well, when Joop Premier Erdogan actually kind of like appealed and addressed Ukraine and Russian political leaders in order to find a kind of like common ground, and still urged them to start negotiating. And as you see, this guy, David Arachamia, he's Georgian. He's a kind of very active negotiator from Ukraine side. And I really I really hope that this negotiation, which was actually which held in Istanbul on a neutral ground, will be definitely just greatly contributing to very, very quick resolution of this. I can't call it conflict, war. So this is one of the articles which I am planning. And let me give you a very kind of like a quick transition to another type of authentic material, which is TED Talk. And why using TED Talks? Guys, I'm not going to share my plan, but still TED Talks together with, of course, printed authentic materials, newspapers. They can inspire our learners, even in situation when we as teachers somehow failed to prepare a proper lesson plan, and which is based on our maybe curriculum. TED Talks not only can save us from an unsuccessful lesson, but at the same time, it can make it as lively as ever and support in evoking interest among most board students, suffering maybe from fatigue or resulting from continuous dependence on course books. At the same time, non-adaptive talks, which are designed and responding to most recent problems and emerging ideas in a number of fields. So apart from mastering target ESP language, also serves as a kind of purpose of improving presentation skills, which is especially I'm doing in my business communication class, where I teach how to give a good business pitch, how to make an effective business presentation. So this can be very nice. And so this is one of my favorite TED Talk, but I think that today just I will not be so actually spending time, but this is a TED Talk which teaches our students, and at the same time me, how to improve our conversational skill. Yes, and this is by Headley, and at the same time, this talk shows that nowadays we are mostly digitalized. We are mostly using electronic, electronically mediated communication, according to the David Crystal. But of course, we should not be forgetting to converse in our native language, and of course, in the global language, English as a lingua franca. So this is a kind of very inspirational talk, which motivates students to speak, to converse, and to actually listen to each other. So this is, I think, very educational talk, and which I definitely quite successfully used. And one and last piece of authentic material, which is, by the way, designed by a good friend of mine. He's from Norway, who has a PhD in rhetoric from US, and he's a specialist of communication. We often publish articles together, and so he has a very interesting podcast he runs on Transistor, and he has very interesting interviews with gurus of communication about how to persuade, how to speak from ethos, pathos, and like logos. And I sometimes use this kind of, again, motivational podcast. Of course, this cannot be done in class, but this can be like for extensive listening activities. This can be given as a homework, but depending on our class level, depending on our course. But I really just used it successfully when I was giving business communication guest lecturing 72 hours, by the way, in Kazakhstan during on pandemic last year. And it really helped. It really saved a kind of my voice as well. So to sum up, in ordinary and in real life and ordinary circumstances, of course, raising media literacy in ESP classroom boosts students' autonomy and at the same time ability to work individually. At the same time, it facilitates the instructors to more effectively manage larger groups of students, and at the same time, it allows the students to experience real life and meaningful language situation and context, and introduce different types of audiovisual authentic materials. So, in my final and last tips, and these are also the tips which I often at the same time give to myself, that let's to plan our ESPL classes based on authentic materials, make them more engaging and real life experience for our learners through exposing and to direct exposure to the world, devote time and efforts to selecting proper authentic materials, once again, passing craft credibility test, and do consult maybe with lots of experienced colleagues, like a special interest group members. I often do consult with ITFL, Business English, or like a special interest group members, and do keep ourselves regularly updated with recent developments in the field, in the subject fields in which we are teaching English for specific purposes. And of course, do strive for continuous professional development while raising media literacy in our classrooms. So thank you very much. So çok teşekkür ederim. And thank you very much for your attention. And I think I was on time.
Yes, you did a great job, and you covered like a million of ideas in 1
Really?
hour. Congratulations. I think you have just broken a new record.
Really?
I stopped taking notes because I couldn't catch up with you. So I'm going to watch the
Okay.
video and just, revise whatever you have said. Thank you very much, because I know how difficult it can be to put everything together within a limited time. Maybe this is one full course to be covered. By the way, colleagues, if you have any questions or any comments, please use the chat box or raise your hand so that you can take the stage and ask your own question. If you have written down the contact information of Tamar Hocam, we can stop sharing the screen and we can see each other.
Yes, yes, and I will be also sharing results of the survey.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So let's
yes, that's
see the
what I
results
wanted.
of the survey.
Yeah. Okay, I'm really interested.
Okay.
Okay. As we see, I think so it's like a 50-50. Most of you both, yes, use both equally with authentic and as I see, and audio visual or audio video, yes, audio visual we call it, yes, podcast and TED Talks are mostly used, but of course both are used. As we see, I think the majority of you so use mostly audio visual. It's good because it's nowadays for non-native speakers, it's very important to develop the listening skills and
Yes.
followed by just speaking skills. Why not? Good idea. Thank you very much. And I will be doing my best to use more audiovisual authentic materials. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, Azra Hocam, about your question, I believe there are lots of linguistic studies or sociolinguistic studies related to that, as far as I know. Foreign speakers using a foreign language like a native speaker is not something that we really want, in fact. I'm going to give an example from one of our audience here. Amanda Hocam is an excellent Turkish user. She's definitely a great Turkish speaker, but it's obvious that she is not Turkish. And that's why we love her for that. Because sociolinguistically, no one, in fact, wants a foreigner to be a part of, to be like them. The same goes for the British, for the Americans. If you're too American, Americans find you a little bit disturbing. If you're too British, the Brits find you a little bit disturbing. Well, what is this? I mean, no, you're not one of us. And that's okay, but I believe what is important here is being intelligible. If people can understand what you say, I believe you're a perfect language user. Well, we have, I believe, one native speaker here among us. All the others we are here are non-native speakers, and see, we can communicate in English perfectly well without any problems. Maybe Amanda Hocam cannot understand what we are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I do apologize for my elf. Yes, because my language is elf, definitely. Dear Amanda Hocam.
Well,
No,
unless
Hello,
everybody
friend.
starts to speak with Manchester accents, I've got no chance. So, just keep going.
Please do.
Tamar Hocam, I have a question. It's not, in fact, a question, but I would like to learn your personal opinion related to this. You have mentioned freedom of speech several times in your talk.
Yeah.
What I'm going to ask you is, should everyone have freedom of speech, say whatever they want to say without taking any responsibility?
You know, in our case, and in case of introducing this concept of freedom of speech, because it must be covered within syllabus, within curriculum, because we are teaching different concepts. Yes, it's like what is freedom of speech, sort of like concepts of international law, etc. So, in this case, we are kind of adding a supplementing course only, because the legal English course, legal communication, not only should be teaching legal English terms, like choosing, matching. Of course, that's why this kind of concept should be taught. Values.
Yes.
This is very important. This is very important. But still, that's why, for example, in my case, in stand-up comedians, because of the fact that she's actually sued by her illustrator already, just divorced. She's divorced her husband because actually her right kind of she mentioned her wife several times. Her husband defamed him, so verbally insulted him. Actually, that's why. So his lawyers his lawyers were claiming that she actually violated this privacy of the information, though. So of course this comedian was claiming that it was her own right, yes, to express, because it was a comedy. So, and that's why it was a hot, just heated discussion among students, because the students of law, they know this value better. They know this a kind of like some more they go beyond this concept, yes, and they really just gave lots of interesting input. That's why so we are actually boosting, facilitating, just making them to practice language with at the same time maybe fixing their opinion actually, and demonstrating the just viewpoint. So this is very important, and we should also let and teach our students to respect each other's opinion. But of course, this is another should just maybe good point, which was made by you.
Maybe it's too late when they come to the university to teach that, to respect each other.
I don't know, but still we have to. I don't know, but still we have to respect their opinion. I mean, because sometimes it's very important. Because now even not all politicians even respect each other's opinion. Then the language of hatred is another problem.
That's really very strange. We are so alien to those things here in Turkey.
Yes, but of course we strive for democracy and the Western values.
Of course, the values, the I don't know, concepts should be there. You have also mentioned that your students study, for example, Times magazine, or a printed document which has some kind of heavy in quotation mark language. Does it become a little bit demotivating for them when they encounter authentic material, which is a little bit, maybe too much about their level?
Yes, so that's the challenge. That's why it's very important. Of course, this maybe frustration, this can be also natural. That's why maybe gradually we should be actually preparing our students, because one day, if they want to improve, the language skills, their competency, one day they will more or less encounter, because nowadays everything is online and so quite easily accessible. So it's very important with so graded instructions, step by step, gradually, by maybe scaffolding, try to actually help them just not interpret, but at the same time learn deciphering, search for key terms, and this. I fully agree with Ali's comment, because he was writing that maybe when I was a student, we were mostly using printed materials. That's why we more or less start teaching English by receptive skills, more or less reading, and let's say then listening. Thank you very much. I think there are people, and we need to enable them to ask questions.
Orhan Hocam, go ahead, please.
Hello. Thank you for this great presentation first, Aydan Hocam. Tamar Hocam. I don't feel very well these days, but I'm gonna keep it short.
Hope you
As you
recover
said,
soon.
Get well
thank you.
soon,
Get
Orhan.
well
Hocam.
soon.
Aydan Hocam, as you mentioned, I come across this problem quite often in my classes as well. Just, choosing or selecting the proper course book or lesson material for the students. And I just, after so many years of experience, I just, found a way to overcome this problem. I mean, this is just my way, perhaps. I'm asking my colleagues in the department, if you teach an authentic course book or just a book about structure, what are you going to teach in the fourth year? I mean, if you teach this in the first year, what are you going to teach in the fourth year? I mean, then I decide. I mean, I said it would be more appropriate or proper to teach them books written by foreigners. For example, a structure book written by a Polish author. So the language is simpler and more understandable for the students. And I just, I found this way. I don't know whether it is correct or not, but it is for the students. I mean, I'm sure that it's more understandable for them. And I mean, they are not, well, when I was given, authentic books, they were all time complaining that the language was too hard for them to comprehend. But now, well, I don't hear such, critics very often. I mean, what's your suggestion here? Could it be the way to overcome this problem?
Tamar Hocam, the question is for you.
Can I? Yes, can I?
Yeah,
Yes,
the
thank you very
question
much,
is
Orhan.
for both of you, Aydan Hocam and Tamar Hocam.
Yes, because as I understood also, he was addressing you as well, the Aydan Hocam. Maybe you will answer first and I will follow you. It's up to you.
Do you want me to answer first?
No problem for me.
As you-
Just, as I understood,
Because
he was addressing
Orhan
you.
Hocam already knows my answer.
Yeah.
When you make a sentence like, when you teach structure, then you lose me. I don't listen to the rest of the sentence.
Three
Because
diagrams, Hocam. Three
I'm
diagrams.
totally against the idea of teaching structure without a context. And context always comes with materials. Materials better be authentic. In some cases can be semi-authentic. Because sometimes, it is really very hard to find authentic materials that can serve in the classroom setting. So you can create a semi-authentic material by taking the authentic material as your model. Because we are not native speakers, we cannot create authentic materials. But I don't believe that just because a book is written by another foreigner, our students understand it better. What if it contains incorrect information? What are we going to do about that?
Well, Hocam, you understand whether the information is correct or not, but
why do I need to worry about the language in it? Orhan Hocam, are you trying to drive me crazy? What is the problem?
Sometimes, sometimes it becomes your privilege to find out the mistake of the author in the class.
Well, even native speakers make mistakes. That's okay.
Yes,
It's just what I'm saying. I don't want to take Tamar Hoca's turn, but I'm just going to say, if I'm going to use authentic materials, I want to make sure that they are authentic.
I
That
don't
is
know.
to
What
say,
I mean is,
if Polish people wrote that thing for English people, that's an authentic material. But if Polish
yes.
people wrote that material for Polish people, it's not authentic anymore. Because for me, in the definition of authentic, it is a piece of material that is produced for native speakers, not for language learners. Tamar Hocam, please go ahead and you take the stage.
Yeah, I agree, Diyan Hocam and Dia Orhan. Of course, I will be, of course, agreeing with your point that when educators, like instructors, they are kind of maybe offered, because, for example, at my university, the place where I'm teaching, we are not obliged. So this is my own initiative, and I'm doing my best in order to kind of make it like a adopted practice, because sometimes it's a headache, because sometimes I'm telling my colleagues that we should leave even spot for academic liberty. Yes, it's very important not to be all the time based and kind of like very much stick to the our course books, and sometimes we cannot afford, even our administration can't afford updating our course books, because it needs to be purchased, etc. That's why I think that it's not a headache, but of course it really needs good planning, maybe teamwork, and of course when there is a kind of like a group of teachers only teaching business English or legal English, they can agree, and they can, I think, find just common ground, and I think that they can very, not easily, but they can agree on the topic more or less relevant to the situation, to the time, to the needs, maybe even political and religious values, different things, and based on it, so try to more or less effectively integrate and diversify their teaching practice with authentic materials. That's my kind of, not philosophy, but my experience.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. But
Orhan Hocam, Turan Hocam is also raising his hand. Maybe he has an answer for you.
well, yes.
Okay, because most
I don't know
probably
whether
we failed to answer your question. So Turan Hocam, would you like to try?
Did you hear me, Hocam? Turan Hocam, did you hear my question?
Hocam, please unmute yourself. Turan Hocam.
Yeah, I think you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I heard your question, Orhan Hocam.
That's why he's raising his hand, Orhan Hocam. You have also driven him crazy.
I think he's gonna polish me.
No. In fact, the answer, there is no one answer to all these questions, because we have students with different levels and with different motivation. And I don't know in which faculty or whether she works or not, Tamar Hocam.
Yes.
I missed the beginning of the presentation. First of all, I'd like to ask a question.
It's pleasure, dear Turan Hocam.
In which department do you work, Tamar Hocam?
Yes, actually, I gave a kind of short background, but my so teaching setting is quite diverse. I also teach as a faculty of business and management. I teach business English. I also teach business English to the students of maritime and navigation faculty, which have English language program. And by the way, we have 2 Turkish students. And I also teach legal English and legal communication to one more private university, the students whose basic background is law. So, and I mostly teach and also teach business communications as a subject, as elective subject at one more university, and which is like and to the students of English philology. This is a kind of a subject, and which is taken by 4th-year students. So I have different diverse groups. That's why. I fully agree. Based on the level, based on the curriculum requirements, I do change it and I do adapt it based on my needs. It's why I don't have this strictly set kind of like once decided plan what to use for this, etc.
I wonder whether the level of the students is proficiency of English. Is it appropriate to follow the authentic materials?
I think that in our case, in our university, students get enrolled with B2 level at maritime faculty and B1 at business and management faculty. Maybe at the very first year, it's really challenging. But to my like, maybe I never take first year students. That's why I mostly get the students from the second year and third year. So already and even as a third year, I mostly teach ESP. And this subject is it itself considers teaching English for specific purposes. And in this case, I'm sure this should be done with authentic materials, even from the second grade. Maybe because of the fact that I don't teach, maybe first graders, this is a kind of like my experience. This is
because, we have this experience in Turkey in METÜ. And maybe Aydın Hocam remembers Reader at Work 1, Reader at Work 2, prepared by Bülent Kandiller and his team. I used those books in prep, sometimes even in the first year of ELT department, especially in Reader at Work 1. It is not authentic, but it has very different, diverse subjects. But what I like is, especially they focused on contextual clues to help the students get the meaning or deduce the meaning from context. Because if the students don't know a lot of new words, then they're blocked. And whether they read or not, they cannot get the meaning. I mean, it's not comprehensible input for them. So that's why I understand you don't like teaching first-year students, because they don't have enough vocabulary. So if
not
they don't
because
have
of the fact that I don't like, but I'm a little bit. So I used to be teaching, but I'm not. These days I mostly get.
Is also raising her hand, but before I'm gonna give her the floor, I'm just gonna say one thing: authentic materials. When I hear the word authentic materials, I do not immediately think of newspaper articles or essays or novels. Even one ticket, maybe a movie ticket or a leaflet, when you go to Disneyland, pick up a leaflet. It's a wonderful, authentic material. Or, I don't know, if you buy a t-shirt, save the price label. That's a wonderful, authentic material. So please don't think that authentic materials can be used with beginners and even with young learners. That's what I'm going to say. Amanda Hocam, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I was just going to say that with authentic materials, that I think the tasks are also more important as well. So you can have rather a complicated text, but it's what you do with the text that's, I think, more important. Rather than actually not using a text because it's really complicated, and come up with a design of a task that students can manage to do at their current level. And it also gives them a kind of idea of like, oh, look, we've looked at this today. And apart from what Aydın Hoca you said about the authentic materials aren't just all these huge essays or articles and things, but at the same time you can approach, I think, an article with a more simple task. That was my penny's worth.
Excellent. I totally agree with you. Years ago, I remember I had a presentation with the military, and the title was "Tasks Are More Important Than Texts." So you can have a very difficult text, but you can only ask students to do one very simple thing. And if they can do it, they feel really highly motivated, thinking, oh my God, I have just dealt with an article from Times, wow, I'm so competent, that kind of thing. So I totally agree with Amanda Hocam. Thank you for reminding us that aspect as well.
Thank you.
And I do agree with Turan Hocam, because if you just give the material without the necessary, and Tamar Hocam has already mentioned how it is important to start with warm-up activities, how to trigger the students' previous knowledge, and how to help them bring whatever they already know into the learning task, and how to deal with the text as well. She has given several different activity types to deal with the text. And I totally agree with her. If you do not have the necessary activities or tasks to help your students focus on what they're dealing with, they're not going to understand anything. They're not going to learn anything. Ali Hocam, you have something to say? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Hocam. First of all, I was one of those students whom you mentioned just a few minutes ago. I was reading Time newspaper at the military high school, and there were some representatives from United States Military Academy, USMA, West Point. Unfortunately, at that year in 2004, the mutual protocols have been cancelled, and I lost the opportunity to study there in West Point in United States. But I didn't lose my encouragement. I always tried my best to keep my enthusiasm. And second, thank you very much for this great webinar, because I was counting the days down for this great webinar. I think tonight, it's the Champions League of the English Language Teaching Society. This is personally, I'm thinking so. And if one day, when I hear that Dr. Tamar start teaching quantum physics or any other subject, I will never get surprised, and I will be there. I will definitely be there to take that lesson from her. Thank you very much, Hocam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So I'm, by the way, starting to teach. I recently gave a course in Lublin, Poland, in global communication, like in project management course.
Tamar
24/5.
Hocam, yeter, please stop. How many different areas can you start teaching, for God's sake? You're gonna feel exhausted. You're gonna feel burned out. Don't do that to yourself.
Okay.
It's their loss.
Yes.
I know it's their loss, but we don't want to lose you. Please.
Thank you.
Take good care
into
of
account.
yourself. And we do not have any right to exhaust you as well. We have kept you here for more than 1.5 hours. I'm so sorry on a Friday, and I know that you're 1 hour ahead of us.
I was looking forward to it. I enjoyed meeting you all, although virtually, and I want to mention
one last sentence, I don't know, if possible.
Okay, Orhan.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I know the education in Georgia, and I want to congratulate Tamar for being so ambitious and motivated to teach. But Tamar, I worked in Georgia at a university for 2 years. Actually, I don't know, I am a student of Georgia also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got double citizenship.
Okay.
And I know the characteristics of the students very well there. And if you can reach them, I mean, that successfully, and if you still can keep yourself so motivated and ambitious, I mean, the only thing that I can do is to congratulate you very much. That's what I want to say.
Thank you very much, Tia. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the responses for my question.
Thank you. Well, isn't that the quality attribute of a good teacher? Never lose your motivation, regardless of how demotivated your students are. Just keep going. Tamar Hocam, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely agree. Because sometimes we are working as altruists on our enthusiasm, because it's a so our internal responsibility, yes, to be developing ourselves. And I really would like to thank you, because I was really happy and honored to be meeting you, though virtually. And I want to mention that out of you only, I met Turan Hocam during 2012 in Antalya, Yabancı Diller Conference, and it's out of this great Turkish community. And I really hope to be meeting you at some event, maybe in Georgia. You are more than welcome here.
Of course, we are looking forward to coming to Georgia. Please invite us.
Don't forget me, Aydan Hocam, don't forget me.
Why should I forget you, Orhan Hocam? You're not in Georgia anymore. I mean, are you going to invite us to Georgia just because you have double citizenship?
I will invite you just not very soon, but I really promise, because we are really planning kind of maybe with Turkish colleagues.
Honestly,
from
I have never
Trabzon
been.
region.
I have never been there, so it would be a pleasure to visit your country. Thank you, thank you. Inshallah,
please.
Inshallah. Okay,
soon.
My dear colleagues, thank you very much. I know we are all teachers, we never stop talking, but I think Tamar Hocam would like to rest after this long day. Thank you, Tamar Hocam. Thanks a million. You just spared your time for us. You gave us a wonderful, informative, inspirational talk. Yeah. Thanks for that. And my dear colleagues, of course, as usual, thank you very much for being here with us. As usual, you brought color, light, and I don't know, love to our session.
It was a great pleasure.
And bye-bye, everyone. Hope to see you next week with another guest speaker. Tamar Hocam, would you like to say bye-bye?
Yes, thank you very much once again. And I really hope to be seeing and meeting you maybe in Turkey, because I'm often invited, or in Georgia, and of course virtually. And thank you once again, because during pandemic, I really fell in love with Turkish EFL community, and I'm still learning from you. So you're really role models, and for me, keep up, so doing great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For your kind invitation. Bye for now.